just as it is, in the Western world. Because I know here we think in terms of our degrees and stuff like that, which is great, and our job roles. But, the subject of psychological safety and the emotional intelligence that drives it, I believe is going to, really unleash the creativity that I know is in this great continent. So that's it from me.
All right. Yep. I've got to say I was very humbled with my group and very inspired by the just kind of the diversity of ideas there. We had people that were brand new to Agile, people that are experienced in it, people that are Scrum Masters, product owners, startups, and large enterprise. And I think that was very eye-opening for me just to see the all the different perspectives that were in the room. And then it really became more talk on how to find your why and the importance of finding something that matters, focusing on the humans whose problems you're solving, understanding how they talk about their problems and what they do to get better. I didn't get to all of my tools, but I think, to the one that matters most, which was find your human beings and solve their problems. And there's some really, really great ideas and really great problems being solved in that room. And it was great to hear that.
Awesome. Thank you. Give the panelists some encouragement. It's really not easy to do that, and they're dealing with a lot of revised scenarios. So yeah, it's tough. So we appreciate you. So I'm sure, as there wasn't a lot of time for Nay, there must be some questions for our panelists. So who would like to kick it off? Guys, no questions. No question. Okay. So, all right, let's do this differently. Here we go. It's not a question. Pardon? A quiz. Excellent.
I have a question.
Oh, where did that come from?
Here's a question. Who can tell me the 4 values of the Agile Manifesto? The first one, individuals and interactions over.
Individuals over.
What's the second?
What's the second one? Well read. I tell you, so good. That was so good. I'm going to ask you to stand up and read it again. Come on. Stand up.
Yeah, so I took notes on that. So the first one had to do with we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And we have the second one, which is that we value working products over comprehensive documentation. The third one, we value customer collaboration over contract negotiations. And the last one, we value responding to change. Thank you.
And that's all you really need to know about Agile. Those 4 things, right?
I feel some meanness coming on. Oh, some questions are coming. All right, here. I haven't got my glasses on. Oh, there you are.
So I was in group 1. Cecil.
Yeah.
COVID was a major catalyst to digital transformation. So in our discussion earlier today, this was one of the ways you cut costs deploying. So I was thinking, so what if we didn't have COVID? What was your plan? Was it that you had a whole budget that would cover to the deployment to all the various rural banks? Was that the initial plan? Was that the initial plan before COVID happened?
So the initial plan was that we will, as much as possible, push that cost to Apex Bank. because already every month they go to those places, that the trainings and then their regulatory work. So if they're going, then we join the vehicle, whatever hotel they are booking, we join. And was to kind of leverage their infrastructure or their logistics so we can deploy. But when COVID hit, and then, for some reason, I was not in the country, they were more accepting or receptive to us doing most of the meetings and engagements online, which really helped us save cost. And then the deployment was much more, smoother. So yeah, that would have been the plan, because then if we want to absorb that cost, in the contract in the first place become too expensive. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you. You're warming up. I don't need to warm up anymore.
Yeah, thank you. Cecil, I was in group 1.
Thank you.
And I know before the advent of Agile, we've heard of other ways of working, whether it was Kaizen or lean management, whatever. And in my thinking, they probably use the same principles that Agile is using now. So my question is, when did Agile become a buzz name, or what triggered Agile to suddenly become what it is today? That is one. Secondly, when we talk about Agile, we're mainly talking about product development. We're talking about profit. We're talking about business in a whole. But I'm from the public sector, and I'm thinking, how can we use Agile in public management? Thank you.
Okay. I'll take the first one, and then the second one kind of follows up. So there are a lot of approaches to doing these things. Agile became more popular because the world became more digital. So software runs the world today. We're proud to software be the predominant utility. Other methods flourished because then those other methods were more efficient in creating like physical processes like manufacturing and all of that. But software made Agile popular because then, there are too many softwares than human beings now. So it made Agile became the thing, all right? And then that kind of overshadows the other principles. So that explains why Agile is like the new kid on the block, right? Now with public sector, you see, you did mention that Agile deals with products, okay? You can productize anything. You see, it's in the mind. You can productize anything, okay? So I can take a public sector, activity and productize it and make it a product in the way I treat it and give it a product manager, give the product owner and apply the same principles. Don't forget ARB that we worked with. It's a public institution enacted by Act of Parliament, a very complex and intimidating, and it's in the banking sector to over security regulation. You can imagine, but we were able to change their mindset for them to see things in the Agile way. And we've done a tremendous work with them to now help create this learning organization. And now they have a digital transformed way of what? Deploying training and assessments across. So you can productize anything, right? It's easy when you productize it so that you can easily apply the principles, right? So that's why I'm using the word productize, right? If it's just even keeping people on time, I know public sector, people should just come to work on time or come to meetings on time, right? How can I productize that? Make somebody responsible for that product. So there's somebody responsible for coming to that meeting. In our conversation, you remember Onela? Onela needed what? Bigger screens, multiple screens to manage that Zoom call with 148 CEOs, right? We productized that meeting, gave it an owner so that she should be muting people, making sure everything runs smoothly. So that kind of application of activities, making them products and assigning people with responsibility to it can help public sector. Easy, right? Yeah.
Great response. Okay. Is there a question at the back? Oh, we've got roaming mic. Are they working now? They're working. Let's test them then. There's a question down here from the lady.
Hello. I was in group 1, Cecil's group, and we had a very interesting interaction. Before I came here, I thought Agile technology was for accountants or project managers. I've worked for a long time in the public sector, and we can use this technology in this post-COVID era to make our processes simpler. We used to spend a lot of money on meetings, and there were budgetary constraints. So with the deployment of this Agile technology, we'll be able to cut across all sectors, all processes, all procedures, make it more efficient and more transparent. And I think that would boost the culture of work, the way we do things in the public sector is achievable. And in fact, COVID, I thank God for COVID. May the souls of those who has done rest in peace. But when it comes to working processes, COVID has transformed everything. And we need to take the lessons we picked up and then add on. This training has been an eye-opener for me, and I wish we had access to it 10 years ago. But it's not too late. It's not too late. We are all learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great comment. How you pull back that controversial statement with a nice qualifier. That's exactly how you do it. Really smooth. Nice. We've got a question at the back there from Joey and two questions here. So Joey, we're just going to take this gentleman here and then we're going to go with this gentleman, this lady, and then this gentleman. And I think after that, we're going to have to wrap so that we can keep almost on track. Sir.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. My question is to Ade. So you talked about psychologically safe teams, and you mentioned that the starting point for a psychologically safe team is inclusion for all. So I'm asking that if someone is on the team and the person is not pulling the weight, the person is not able to deliver as expected, how do we bring the person on board, right? For the person to feel safe. Because for me, if I'm on a team and I'm not able to deliver, that will be my first point of withdrawing. So if someone like that is on the team, how can we help the person come back to being part of the team?
Great question.
That's a good question. And I think it's kind of multifaceted, because you first have to understand why the person is not contributing. Is it that there is a dynamic within the team? Is it that they don't feel safe in the team? Because sometimes within teams, you can have teams within teams, right? They help themselves, may not be, that person may be excluded. And it's so important to have that inclusion to learn. When you go to a new job, 70%, unless you're the kind of person who loves to go to a new job that is 100% of what you've done before, right? So let's at least agree that everyone has to learn to develop. So if it's a case of dynamic, then it's a different conversation. If it's a case of mastery, it's putting in place a development plan that will help that person. And I wouldn't underestimate the learning that you can learn from peers. I joined an organization within a BP during the COVID time. And I was so used to doing, facilitating workshops face-to-face. I'm telling you, it scared the living daylights out of me to know that I now had to facilitate workshops digitally using Miro, using Mural. but there was such a collective, how should I put it, agile chain community that you didn't feel afraid you would, look down on you, because we bring something, right? I have something they need, and I needed someone to help me with that. And within weeks, months, I don't think anyone knew. I didn't know Mural before I joined that organization. So, it's about being human, pretending we have all the answers. If that person knows that they aren't going to be blamed, and they really want to improve, then I feel it's a worthwhile investment to put something into that person. Does that answer your question? Great.
Well, I was in her class as well, Dike.
Yes.
And as I sat there, I was thinking to myself that I wish I had known these things many years ago, like the lady said. I think Agile, whatever we are having here, it's we are almost devaluing it, because this is great. And I wish everyone will have this experience. My friend here told me about it, and I looked at the brochure and I was like, oh, this is so interesting. I tried to recruit a few women. I was unsuccessful. But I think this is one of the greatest seminars I've ever attended. Thank you very much.
I hope somebody recorded that.
Thank you very much.
We're going to this gentleman. Okay.
Firstly, I just want to add to what Cecil said. I've worked in 25 years with the local authority in UK, and we have actually adopted agile methods on non-IT programs, taking our targets, breaking them down into smaller goals in order to reduce the aspect of risk and the cost of risk at the end of the projects. So I just want to say that it's not just only about IT programs, but also about whatever you do, you can adopt agile methodology to it. Now, my question is for Adi. On the class, you actually spoke about breaking down stone walls. And I know some of the problems we have in organizations are different departments working in silos, which does affect collaborative working. So how do we break down those silos as well to enhance collaborative working to actually achieve all our targets in an agile way?
Thank you very much. I think this is, the subject of silos is something that we see in organizations, and many of their processes and systems were optimized to really support that silo thinking. And what we now understand in this knowledge economy, whereby collaboration is key, that it is hard for us to be able to respond in a timely manner when we have, so many handoffs between different teams. So somebody asked the question earlier on this morning about decision-making. How do you speed that up? It's really hard to speed up decision-making if you have, a long chain of command and so many different teams that something has to go through. And so the answer to that is multidisciplinary working. So my colleague to the left has spoken about productizing things, and it doesn't have to be, tangible products. It could be, software for one isn't, but one of the ways to think of it is a project that you would have delivered through project management, by making sure you have on the team the different disciplines that will help you get to the answer and execute it quickly is one way. So the team structure, if used properly, can do that. As a coach who works with teams, one of the things I do is to understand from the leaders which disciplines need to be part of that solution, and then work with them to articulate a strategy for delivering that solution. And then once they see that they are part of delivering, making that dream happen, then they can, they work out a way to do that on a business as usual basis if that is required. If it's just a product that has an end date, then, they disband. But it is possible to do that. It requires leaders to be on board, leaders who are prepared to share their team members, their direct reports for the good of the company. And it is understanding which projects require, cooperation and rewarding a cooperation in the organization. Now, it's really hard to break down silos if you're telling people to work in teams and you don't, there's no carrot or stick in terms of who is working as a team player or who is not. So if there is no, as part of your performance assessment, nobody is being evaluated on it. When it comes to bonuses, nobody is being rewarded for delivering things as a team or cooperating with other parts of the business, then it won't happen. So it's a systems, thinking, is a ways of working, and then the IT in the organization, all the processes have got to support it as well.
That's a fantastic answer. That answer is world-class. Note it, because there are some serious pearls there. Thank you, Adi. Got a question here.
All right, thank you very much. So not necessarily a question, but to add to what the gentleman over there said, how Agile would actually help in the government sector. So I actually got the chance to experience a situation during COVID where we came up with a contingency plan. And then out of that, the working from home policy came through, and then people began working from home with all the resources provided and were able to seamlessly work rather than being in the physical office space. So I would say that through Agile and other digital transformation opportunities, government sector can also capitalize on the option to recruit more people, because currently employment is one of the biggest challenges we have in the system. So recruiting more people and not necessarily having an office space to have them work, but you can provide them with the right resources for them to work from home and then be able to also be productive. And then also this will actually cut down costs, because we have series of information coming out that building a physical structure costs this number of millions and all that, which takes a longer time to complete. But providing them with the resources, for instance, the laptops, the internet connections, they will be able to work efficiently and effectively in their office space. To add to that, and then what the facilitator said, now you can assign them with a project manager. So having people work from home, and then you have a project manager assigned to them, monitor, supervise them as well, to be able to at least execute what they have been mandated to do. Thank you.
Awesome. You're waking up now, aren't you? That's good. That's good. Well, I made a mistake. It should have been the lady, but it was the gentleman. But, I've got to hold my hand up for that. So, madam, if you would please, your question.
Thank you. So I was in Chris's group, and I would like to ask, he said something about Agile, and when you're using Agile, you start small. And my question is, what happens if you're trying to start a business and you identify your who, and then the business is such that it requires huge capital, even the initial capital is really, really huge. So how, and you just really can't start small on such a business. How do you go about it?
Ooh, you're asking a good question. So the question is, make sure I understand it. You've got a problem, you understand who you're solving, but you don't see a way to make it small. It's going to require a large investment. It's not that you can't do that. You can. Just know that if you go and you're investing and it takes a lot of capital, the risk is significant, and you will dramatically increase the potential downside if it weren't to work. Usually, if you get into those situations where I don't know how to make this idea smaller, it's this big thing, but I need to start small, we can focus on maybe we don't solve the problem for everyone. Can we solve the problem for a small subset of people? Could we maybe solve just a very specific part of the problem? For instance, I worked on a system for food assistance in the United States, and applying for food assistance is a very complicated problem that was going to take lots of business rules. There's lots of different communities that we're working with. The simplest way to solve that problem is ask, do you want food assistance? Yes or no? Give me your address. You got a food assistance card. That's the easiest way. Now, that's not going to be something that we release, but we could build it and get feedback on it. Make sure that we're going in the right direction. Find out, hey, does this actually help a subset of people? And then we could begin to add other subsets. And the important thing is maybe your problem is such that you've got to have a huge capital investment to get it out the door, but can you break it down to find out and validate the smallest possible thing? And then if you're struggling with that, that's where coaching and support in a community comes in. That's the role of the product owner, whether it be Kanban or Scrum or whatever you're doing. The product owner, the product manager, their job is to find the smallest experiments you can do to learn. And that learning is the most critical thing. Was that at all helpful?
That answer your question, ma'am? And have you forgiven me for ignoring you? Okay, so we've got one more question, and that's going to not come from Joey. Joey, I'm ever so sorry. You're going to have to ask the question at lunch. I hope you'll forgive me and don't use your military tactics on me. Sir, final question.
Okay, so I want to find out from your experience, at what point in a project do you think, instead of using Agile, maybe a different methodology like waterfall could have been helpful?
Ooh. So are there ever times that waterfall is better than Agile? As a process, I really don't care. You could have Agile mindsets and Agile approaches and do waterfall. If your focus is on validating up front and experimenting, I really don't care what process you're doing. You're being Agile. You're trying to find the smallest thing to solve the smallest problem and learn, and then it doesn't matter what you do. Tap dance there.
So if I may add, so that so Agile, being Agile or using waterfall, these are means, to an end, right? But the end goal is to create something as small as possible that can be efficient and deliver. Then you can learn from that and get to the next level, right? Just to reduce your risk and then also be able to save. So if the means to that end happen to be waterfall, right? The ideology, the mindset of just trying to get the smallest part done first is Agile. So you can mix all and then it keeps going, right? So you don't get to say, okay, no, I won't use Agile, I will use waterfall. No, it's neither there or there, It's all intertwined. Unless, of course, you say, I've broken my project into 5 steps, right? 5 small steps, which is the Agile mindset. Then by the second step, you say, no, you know what? I'm just going to combine all together again. Then that means you are drifting away from Agile and you're going to have a lot of problems.
Yeah, and just to build on what has been said, another way to sort of determine whether a project requires Agile is just the nature of the work, whether it is really complex. If it's complex, you need to break it down, as my colleagues have said, to the smallest element of it that will enable you to learn, pivot, or change course or do some, stop what you're doing. But if it's something like cooking, for instance, where you've prepared this dish so many times, you don't need Agile for that. Maybe for building, where you have a defined roadmap, it's been done a million times before. There isn't anything new to learn about it. On some really high infrastructure, asseted projects, there are elements of it. Even within different industries like the automotive industry, there are elements that require waterfall, because there is good practice already well defined. Those elements of it, you can waterfall it. But for the bits, because everything is becoming software based, even within the automotive industry, within retail, those elements that require collaboration, cooperation, they're elements of unknown. It could be about the customer element of it, the understanding what the customer wants. It could be about the technology. Then Agile is quite crucial to deploy. There will be some projects where it's about efficiency, in which case lean methodologies are more appropriate for those kind of projects. Thank you. That's my contribution.
And an excellent one, I have to say. Sir, was your question answered? You've got a happy customer. So my apologies, Joey. We've got to press on for time, but do have a chat with the panel during lunch. So I'd like you to put your hands together for our esteemed panel. Cecil, Adi, Chris, thank you very much. Some really insightful answers that will really help. This is really great stuff to know. So thanks, guys. Thank you.